mentioning last time about entertainment, reminding you that you should hear in the term entertainment also what ordinary people call information, all the way from, well, it includes everything in man's invented civilized world, but calling it entertainment as opposed to the necessities of staying alive physically. And we were mentioning that there's a kind of entertainment that is dumbing, and a kind that is defensive, supportive of civilization, and there's a subset, bringing you up to date, the dumbing entertainment, and all this is overlapping. That means dovetails, or for those of you that have parakeets, that they do overlap, and there's no absolute line to be drawn, and that can not only does this not exist outside of man, even though we can describe it that way, even if it existed out there, it runs together like the colors in the rainbow, but inside of a person. You can go from one to another. You could be apparently in a venue that was like a movie, and for any particular segment, for a second, you could be engaged, you personally, in a kind of intake of dumbing entertainment, and a split second later, it could shift to something else. But the dumbing entertainment, in a sense, is retro. It is drinking, it is gossip, it is most of the so-called, although you shouldn't hear it as being literary criticism, that's not the point, but the so-called trashy novels of all times. It is anything that, in a sense, is encouraging uncivil behavior or uncivil dreams, uncivil imagination. The supportive and the defensive, it would be the counterpart of that. And historically, one of the great examples of that would be religion. And it doesn't matter what religion it is. As long as it's a major religion, it is a hack. It is a shill for civilization itself. Of course, civilization's a shill for itself. But what I wanted you to see was it is more active, that although religions, for the childish, are saying, life has them say that God wants you to do so-and-so and so-and-so, but all religion is actually up to, its main job is to civilize man. Same way politics, same way all social institutions and organizations. So if you see these two as being, I want to make a point, if you saw this as going in one particular direction, like retro, and this one, that this is actively, in a sense, retro. That you have to go out and actually go to a movie about murder and mayhem and rape and hostility. Or you have to go buy a novel or a newspaper. You have to do it. You have to go out and buy booze to do it to yourself, or drugs. And the other way, in the same sense, is active. But there is a subset I wanted to point out that is sort of merely distractive. And I brought up the term before I just made up last time, musical comedy sports. Since there's already such a term as musical comedy, as everybody knows, I just did another one to try and... This is like a subset. And what it amounts to is sort of, well, it's just distractive. And again, all this overlaps and runs together, but it would be, say, musical comedy came to mind because that would be if you went to see a play, atypical musical comedy, and it was not based upon glorifying mayhem, etc., which most of them are not, or they wouldn't be classified as musical comedy. It's kind of artistic puff or fluff, and the same as sports. People that they may take an apparent active interest in sports. They may have season tickets, and they may get the ball game and hoop and holler, and they can even get drunk or drink and be engaged in a form of dumbing entertainment. But you'd understand the point is it is not particularly dumbing in and of itself, nor is it particular civilizing. It's almost as though life, after it has these first two, and life's main interest is in the second one, as I listed, is the supportive form of entertainment. In education, in all the voices that encourage us, that encourage man to pursue further education, to pay your taxes, to be decent, to take care of your children, to have them inoculated. Or is that your animals? No. To have them shot, that's better. Have their shot. But it is all the things that your mama ever told you. It is all of the positive aspects of civilized life. It is out there, and it comes out of many voices, all the way from religion to education to public service announcements on TV to just somebody on the corner just turns to you and makes some would-be philosophical dime store comment. It is the thrust of we should be decent. We should be civilized. Then on the other hand is that which is still available. There's nothing new, but it's still available in the horror movies, the exorcist kind of movies. Anything that, in a sense, makes you go, yeah, almost want to turn your head. Now, I know that people can say they enjoy it and etc. But it is a kind of dumbing. It is a momentary, and it's not going to kill people. Obviously, or life would stop it. It's not going to turn terminal on you one time or in and of itself. But it is a retroing. It is a kind of going away from the supportive, positive aspects, thrust of life in general. So between these two, between somebody in church being civilized, being concerned and sending in when they found out that they were 10 cents short on their tax return to send it in by themselves, the kinds of people that sit around, they worried that life is going to hell and the society is falling apart. All the way from that to, you might look at the other end, some guy that's drunk every weekend and at least every other weekend's arrested for it. Beats up his wife, mistreats his children, wrecks his car, hurts other people. So you've got these two, and yet they both exist in society. And it's like in the middle, as life also has this subset that is really neither here nor there. It's just sort of a time out. It will allow people to sort of be innocuously distracted. It is almost as though you don't have to be totally involved in being civilized, and yet you're not doing yourself a great deal of harm. Then we're back to, and I wanted to bring you up to, but that has, not going to stay on, but that does have some practical significance that you can see. The question was then presented, if you recall, it sounded rhetorical, of after all of that, then where is the truly inspiring, the encouraging, the futuristic, the impelling entertainment? If life were speaking, if life had one of its spokesmen here to respond to that, they would immediately point to a number of aspects, institutions, organizations in my second listing. Religion being the great one, the most obvious one, because they would say, even if they weren't religious, they could say in general, not referring to any religion specifically, denominationally, they could say that religion does encourage man's higher aspirations, higher potentials. They could just say it and look at whoever asked my rhetorical question as though you're an idiot. That's exactly what they do, and yet it's not. If that were indeed the case, then religions would be succeeding. But we'll say this fast and see if you get it. If indeed religion was the spokesman, was the example, was the response to my question as to where is the other form of entertainment that is truly inspiring, impelling, futuristic, it is not religion, because if that were indeed religion, then religion would be, quote, succeeding. The Christian church would be producing Christians by their own definition. Judaism would be producing Jews, Islam would be producing real Muslims, etc. not attempting to. Not people with good intentions. Not that they're doing anything wrong, but they are not succeeding. We've been through this before. They cannot succeed. It's suicidal. But what if they did start succeeding? What if the Christian church has suddenly become filled with people who would do what they say they should be doing, what they aspire to do, modeling themselves after a hero, a Jesus. And they say, well, here's what we should do. Need I point out the obvious? That would be the end of the church. Or put it another way, you can make a joke out and say if Jesus actually showed up in church and walked in and tried to talk for a while, they'd do to him what the story said originally. They'd say, somebody throw that guy out of here. You know, whether they knew who he was or not, it'd just, hey, you know, get out of here with that stuff. If he got up and started talking about not intentions, not good intentions, but I actually talked about making change. Religion, the point being, you should not hear this in any form as criticism. It's just religion is the obvious example, but all public morality, collective wisdom, education, not just the specifics technically of someone learning how to repair small electrical appliances. That's a little beyond, that is, it's a little below what we're talking about. I'm talking about education in general. That is the public sentiment, the public service message that life sends out through various outlets, saying that we should all be more educated, that it is more and more important, and that is one of these civilizing influences, is for one to be exposed, not just if he's going to technical school, but somewhere along the line a person should be exposed to the fine arts, some survey course in the humanities, that a man's got to know, or he needs to know something about history, the history of our country, the history of the Western world, or the Eastern world, wherever you're from, the history of his culture, to have some kind of solid foundation to be a good citizen, which is saying what? Be civilized. It is a defensive mechanism, is why I call it that. It's what religion is doing. Now, I know it says religion and education and all the other public service announcements coming out of life, out of the bourgeois middle class of life, which is really what that second group is, that second listing. That is who the main players are. That's why they're of supreme importance. What they talk as though they are encouraging man to do better. That's why I said if they had a spokesman here to respond to that, they would treat the question with disdain, disbelief. Well, I can't believe you're asking that question, because religion constantly says do better. What does religion do? It's constantly picking on man, saying, look at all the shady stuff you do, all the questionable things you do, you lie, you cheat, do better. If that's not encouraging, what is? If you're a middle class, that is, of childish, that kind of childish, simplistic mind, you would be stuck. As if you were trying to go anywhere anyway, but you would be stuck like, well, I guess you got me. But think about it a second. You people, I'm assuming, have some ability to think outside the cesspool, the playground, the dualistic nature of everyday thought. That is not inspiring. I know it sounds inspiring, but you cannot call it operational inspiring, since they do not demand results. They do not expect results. Okay. You do not have to be a Christian. You do not have to be a Christian to be a Christian. You don't have to be a Buddhist to be a Buddhist. All you got to do is say, well, I want to be. I'm here. I'm trying to apply myself. As a matter of fact, we've been through this before, but if you go to the head of any religion and point out to them that you cannot live by the precepts of blank, whoever, Muhammad, the Quran, Buddhist writings, the New Testament, you cannot do it. The head of their church will say, well, I can't either. You know, don't fool yourself. None of us can. That's what we're working for. We're trying to be Christians, but no one could be like Christ. That's why he was the Son of God, which is a story everywhere. That's why he was supernatural, is he could tell you to do these things. Do you hear the distinction? And it's not a distinction with no difference. It is not simply a verbal distinction. That is not encouraging. You want to look at it another way? If you had a child and you said, what I want you to do is do good. Maybe you find the child, 6 or 7 years old, and he's smoking. Let's just put it that way. Drinking. And you say, I want what's best for you, so I want you to stop that. Which, let's say, it would be, instead of you saying, let's stop that, you can say, I want you to be a good Jew, a good Catholic. And you come back around and you find him the next day and he's behind the house drinking and smoking again. And let's say that you are a reasonable, very concerned, ordinary, middle-class parent. And if you said, I told you not to do that. I told you that our family, us good blanks, us good northern, us good Italian Christians, us good Lebanese Arabs, we do not drink and smoke. And the kid says, oh, I took it seriously, I'm trying. And you were just an ordinary parent, and you looked down at a 5, 6, 7-year-old, and you went, we seem to be speaking the same language, correct? You understand me? And the kid says, yeah. And you say, I didn't tell you yesterday to try. Did the word try slip out of my mouth? And the kid, you see where it's going. You would say, don't do that. If this is getting too icky, how about a dog? And you say, don't doo-doo in the floor to your new dog. And you go back around and day after day he keeps doing it, and the dog goes, I'm trying. You'd say, I did. All right. See, there is a difference. There is a distinction that is normally overlooked in life because it's not necessary. But religion, society, everything that is supportive and defensive, that kind of entertainment, that kind of information, that kind of directive, whether it come from religion or somewhere else, staying with religion as being the easiest to describe and the most common, it is defensive. It can sound encouraging in the same way that if, back to my example, if we were standing around the corner and we heard this man talking to his son and saying, I do not want you to do things that are harmful to your health. I want you to do only healthy things so that you grow up to be a healthy person. And we are standing around there, you could say, now there is encouragement. There is inspiring information. You understand? That contrary to what I said, you could say there is inspiring information in life. That's inspiring. Until you put it back to my example, the full content of my made-up example. How's it inspiring when all it is remedial? How is it inspiring when it operates in ordinary life that the church, back to this example, no church that you go to that you will find that will give you the list of how to be a good whatever it is. And they say, here's what do. None of them will come back around. Not in a mainstream church. If it's contrary to this, it is considered a cult and it won't last long. But no mainstream religion, never has, never will come around to you and say, are you doing exactly what we said? Not only will they not do that, if you go confess to them, like I said, or if you go ask their help and say, it just strikes me, I want to do this and it sounds correctly and I can't do it. And if you go several times, the priest or the rabbi or somebody's going to say, well look, don't drive yourself crazy. None of us can. None of us are perfect. And to actually be a good blank, Jew, Catholic, would be to be perfect. Or to say another way, to be perfectly civilized is to be perfect. And there's no such thing as that. Because everyone engages, everyone has a taste for some form of dumbing entertainment. There's no such thing as a perfect person. No one sane will say they are. There is the distinction to my question as to where is the truly encouraging, impelling, futuristic information. Because that which normally passes for it is not. Because it does not expect results. Forget demand it. They don't even expect it. Because life doesn't expect it. We're not talking about the shortcomings of a religion. Life does not expect change. Not in you. Not in a single man. Not in a single lifetime. Again, while we're here, you might care to consider, those who are interested, the continuing idea of reincarnation, the resurrection. Is the DNA has its own consciousness, the genetics of man. It does not talk, obviously, directly. But there is that kind of silent knowledge that one lifetime is not going to get anything done. Now, I'm not trying to hint to you that literal reincarnation exists, but all of you know the stories and the beliefs in some religion. But notice that is based upon something physically, genetically true, because it is the continuing genetics of man, not of you, that knows you can be drunk. As if it paid any attention to one person, but if the genes were in you, they might pay attention, because alcohol will probably get on them and ruin their clothes and make them dizzy sometime. But the genetics, the DNA of man knows that even if you run amok, that if you die, if you are born and you go downhill from the day you're born, the DNA of man knows, hey, it's not the end of the world. I mean, if this guy is suicidal, if he drinks himself or herself into a grave by the age of 20, your DNA is not worried. All you got to do is write it out like a bad bus trip between here and Birmingham. Your liver explodes, you die, they bury you, it seeps into the ground, it comes up through somebody else, and there's your reincarnation, if you want to look at it that way. Of course, it didn't die anyway, but if you want to look at it, the point I was trying to get you to see is that humans know at a non-verbal level, at a genetic level, that one lifetime, under ordinary circumstances, there is no change. It's like, and the idea that you're going to change, that you're going to go from being a heathen to a real Jew, to a real Christian, that you're going from being civilized and stupid and childlike to being enlightened and the stupor mundi, the wonder of the age and the time and the planet. It's not going to happen, and your genetics know it. I point that out again so that you don't get too distracted, or if anybody think that they're hearing criticism of life in any way. It is back to using religion as the example. They do not expect change. Those running the apparent official spokesmen do not expect change in themselves, so forget demand it. Understand? They don't even expect it. And they will contrary tell you that if you get too excited and overheated about it, calm down. I can't even do it. You come to me for advice. I know that I'm here in a position wearing the clothes and the robe and whatever, but I can't do it. Do not drive yourself nuts. And beyond the DNA writing their own quiet little part there under, over, outside the bus and not worrying about it, knowing that the end of the trip's not the end of the trip for them. Beyond that, then you've got the stories for man up here, for this part of the neural system, that say, that even the spokesman will say, no, we can't do it, so don't drive yourself crazy, but try. And then after you die, the gods will look favorable upon you. Or they'll say, good shot. A scale of 1 to 10 compared to a bunch of those bozos in your generation, you get an 8. All right, we'll give you an 8, come on in, to paradise. Or there is no such thing. Now back to maybe some of you are seeing it. In a sense, as far as me setting up this kind of reasonable, verbal model to start with, then the question, after these 3, or these 2.5, of the question, where is the entertainment, the info? You can start putting slashes, entertainment, info, data, directions. Where is that which is truly inspiring? Not defensive, not put supportive. I'm trying to play and let you ease yourself up. But that's not supportive of change, it's supportive of the status quo. It talks about change. But when does it talk about change? When does the middle class, when does that second area of life talk about change? Its change is remedial. That is, its change is in response to the dumbing entertainment. It is in response to the fact that life knows people are not totally civilized. And so that which sounds encouraging is simply supportive. Put it to you this way. It's like everyone starts out, if we know our geography, let's say that everyone starts out in St. Louis, that you're born in St. Louis, and life wants to get you to San Francisco. Now, let me put it another way. We're born in St. Louis, and life wants to get you to Colorado City. Then it will encourage you. It will just state, it'll never mention Colorado City. Or Denver, it'll never mention Denver. All you'll ever hear is San Francisco, San Francisco. You understand it's going to point past, and it will never even mention where it wants you to go. which is the difference between talking about change and not expecting change. That is, of talking about moving, but life does not expect you to move. So all you hear from, maybe now I hear some of you, that is why religion talks in a certain way, and they're not in a conspiracy. Because as I said, the Pope, anybody would tell you the same story if you got them down. They'd say, well, hey, don't worry, don't drive yourself crazy. It's great to see somebody as interested as you are and sincere. But son, this has been my whole life. I've risen to the top. I'm the head of the flock. And I cannot do all this. I have to pray. I have to confess. I cannot live a, quote, Christian life. If I can't, don't drive yourself nuts. Now, they would say that. But then what is the public message? The public message is of life coming out of politics, religion, education, your family. It's hollering to everybody, wagons ho, San Francisco, by God, or burst. And all it wants you to do is get somewhere close to Colorado, to Denver. But it will never mention Denver. See, Denver would be like admitting a religion that, which of course they can't do it. I don't mean that they could do it or that they're trying not to do this, but it would be like life saying, all right, now I'm going to tell everybody when they're born. I'm going to tell all of you and I'm going to tell you now, and then I'm going to tell you through religion and politics and just your family environment and the neighborhood. I'm going to tell you that you have got to make this kind of change, but I'm going to tell you right now, you can't do it, and I don't expect it, but now, don't let that bother you because I'm going to tell you got to. You understand that? That's extremely confusing. Most people got their hands full now trying to figure out their income tax or what to do when the car won't start. There is no information, not because it's a conspiracy, not because anyone's hiding it, but once you see this, there is no such thing as real information that's out in life that is entertainment. It's got nothing to do with eating, sleeping, sexing, resting. So it's entertainment. There is none that's available that actually says San Francisco, that actually talks about the future. Because if we're all born in St. Louis and life only expects your generation to get to Denver, then that's it. So it's not going to say otherwise. There is no information that actually talks about the future, because if life only wants you to get from St. Louis to Denver, in spite of what it says, then there is no future. I'll put it another way. That is your future. If you're born here, if this is a line of time, you're born here in St. Louis, at the age 70 at best, you'll be at Denver. Now that's time to you. But there is no future. The future's already laid out. You're not going past that. Your whole generation's not. Man is not going any further than that in that lifetime. So to say that it's futuristic is not true. Which, if you see as the same, it sounds as though it's temporal instead of spatial, instead of physical, material, but it's the same thing, because religion, for instance, says you can't do this now, but maybe you can do it when we die. Well, they say for sure you can. That if you try real hard and do whatever it is it takes to get to paradise, to please our God, at least after you die, then we'll all be blanks. Real ones, real Muslims, Jews, Christians. Then we will. But you understand, we can't now. Even the heads of the religion say, no, I can't do it either. So none of us can do it now. We'll do it in the future. Which is, I know we've been through this, that's kind of a problematic future, wouldn't you say, is it? No, it's not. Your genes will be there, but whether you'll recognize them or they'll recognize you, or you're still in a position to talk and think, we don't know. That is not futuristic. If the futuristic cannot be experienced, then it's not futuristic. It's again life saying through its spokesman that we have got to go to San Francisco. Now it would sound as though the real future, but it's no future if all it is expecting, and it knows, is that you're going halfway. You're going to Denver, maybe. That is not futuristic, because it is pointing further than it goes. It is asking for more than it expects. Back to, again, the question, is there actual encouraging, futuristic entertainment and information available? And not because it's hidden. That's the next thing that the would-be drugstore mystics fall into is, and then it's a short stuff, as always, into secret knowledge, secret book, something being hidden from us. It would be information that were it widespread and heard is, of course, the key, but it would be disruptive. It would not be salubrious. It would not be good for civilization. It would not either be going in that direction. It wouldn't be retro, and it wouldn't actually be supportive and defensive of the status quo. It'd be explosive, disruptive. Now, insofar as it being not available, and insofar as people imagine that if there is such an information, and many of them would have already agreed to this and figured I'd gone too far and wasted time, that, I knew it wasn't in religions, I knew it wasn't in the Bible or the Quran or in Buddha's writings. If Jesus and Buddha and those other cats actually knew something, they didn't tell the crowd. It was something secret, and it's been passed around, and it's just beautiful. I mean, it sends chills up and down. A good dime store mystic. That wasn't offensive because it sent chills up and down probably all of you. But, then the thing is, it's true. I know there is something missing. There's a key somewhere. And so to think that it actually exists out there, at least it gives you something to do. To think it is in San Francisco. Everybody else thinks they're just going to Denver. It is in a cave up in the mountains of the Himalayas up in San Francisco. To actually believe, to accept that it is somewhere, in a sense will stop would-be mystics from absolutely going batty. Yeah. Because if you actually believe it is somewhere, then you think, well, if I could just save my money, if I could arrange my life to get there, or if I could get there and was lucky enough to find it and find out where the secret was. All right, here's the secret. I decided to go ahead and tell you. The encouraging, the truly encouraging, the truly inspiring, the truly futuristic and impelling entertainment is in you. I'm saying if it exists. If it exists for you, it is in you. It is in your consciousness. That's it. Perhaps some of you will enjoy that better in a few hours. Well, no. I'm sure that some of you are laughing now thinking, well, that's obvious, or I suspected that, or, well, hell, I knew that, or I've read something similar to that. There's more, and some of you will not be laughing the same way sometime in the future. Not that there's anything wrong with laughter, but you will not be, If there is, you do understand the response to the rhetorical question about where is the truly encouraging, futuristic, inspiring entertainment in life. It's not out there. There is none. There is none, never has been, and anything, the reason it took up this much time is it is so subtle, and life is so defensive of its position as it should be, and you should be. Or as we sometimes put it, you should be just as in favor as you can of as many people in life being civilized, square, bland, middle class as you can be. Rather than being ashamed of your parents or being so square, or the people in your neighborhood. No. Anytime there's some kind of petition like the people in favor of more squareness in the world, I sign it. Sign it 2 or 3 times, different names. You should be contribute a few bucks. But when you realize this is a lot different than some of you thinking that you already knew that when I put it in words a couple of minutes ago, that the proper response to the question about where is entertainment that's informative and encouraging futuristically, not supportive of the status quo, operationally, not just the talk, but operationally, the intent. Everything else that talks good, everything else that talks a good game that we're encouraging man to do better, such as religion, it does not operationally or is not operationally involved with it. The proof being that they don't expect you to do it. They can't do it. The spokesman can't. In the same way, life does not expect you to get to the New Jerusalem, sometimes known as San Francisco. All it does is expect you to get halfway there, or down the road, to get to Denver. Everything else, all of that, no matter how they point, all of it is defensive of the status quo of life. So the answer to where is the entertainment that is truly inspiring and futuristic, that points past the status quo, it is nowhere. It has never been here. And you can look forever, and it's not out there. It's not hidden. That's just a subset of the would-be dime store mystics that think, well, it is hidden, because then you can spend the next 40 years looking for it. That's for people who don't go as far as deciding, well, it does exist, and so now I feel better. If I ever get around to it, I'll look for it. And that's one way. Another way is to think, is not even be sure that it exists, but go, well, I'll find out. And either way, you're going to end up sort of on the, if not the main highway, out on some gravel road between here and Denver on your hands and knees. And you'll crawl for 40 years. But it's a hobby. And you'll get more or less in the same general vicinity of Denver, and life will smile upon you as much as anybody else. That is, it'll kill you, and you'll be in more or less the same boat as everyone else that actually got on the bus and went there. And believed they were getting very close to San Francisco, and if not, beginning to feel real guilty about it. There is no enlightening, is what it amounts to, if you want to call it that for a second. There is no enlightening entertainment in life. There is no enlightening information in life. And those that believe that it's hidden, that there's hidden knowledge, I mean, that's as smart as any. It's a little smarter than the people who believe it's down the street at a temple or a church. As deluded as the former group is, in a sense, it's no importance. They're a little better off to believe, well, no, it's not down there, it's hidden. I mean, it's not, but at least they know it's not down there. It's nowhere. Futuristic, encouraging, inspiring information does not exist out there. And if it exists for you at any time in your life between now and when you die, if it exists anywhere, it's in you. It's not a figure of speech. It's not some kind of rehashed mystical ploy to say, well, the truth is in you and God's in you and all that. No, no, no. The inspiring information, the information that is actually impelling, is in you. Now, it's in everybody, because it's in the DNA of man. It's in the genes of man. The question is now, in a few people, it rises above the genetic level, the silent level, and it gets up in here, normally called the mind. For years and years, and especially the East and the way it's been translated, they use, although around here we've been changing the terms a little bit of no great importance, but it's been referred to as, instead of an actual deity, great universal mind, the mind of life, the mind of the universe. And therefore, the mind of man would be the secret, is the key. Tied to what I was just, that we're talking about now, would then to say, there is no truly informative, encouraging, inspiring, futuristic information anywhere. No matter where you look, it is not out there. Life does not provide it out there. If it is anywhere for you, for any individual, it is in you. Then the next thing to point out, since we've already established that it's in everybody genetically, that if it's in you beyond the silent genetic level, which is meaningless to you individually, then it's got to be somewhere that's not silent. So you'd say, well, it's in my mind. Let's just ordinary mind, that you say it's there. But then you would be faced with this. If you had any intellectual wherewithal, then you're immediately faced with, wait a minute, if that's true, I'm faced with a bigger task than trying to go over and find my way to the Himalaya mountains. And that's all I know is somebody said, there's a cave in the Himalayan somewhere. That I've got to find the cave and find the right guy that's got the right book. You'd understand. I don't know, it covers thousands or millions of square miles up and down. You'll never find it, right? But if you're listening to what I'm saying, you're the right kind of person, you could go, wait a minute. What you just pointed out is an even more daunting task than to consider that I'm going to be dropped in the middle of the Himalayas and got no idea where I am and start looking for this one cave. If you're saying that the only possible encouraging, impelling, enlightening information is in me and it's in my mind, you don't know my mind. The ups and downs, the cliffs, the crevices, the landfills, the swamps, the gullies, the dangerous areas of my mind makes the Himalayas look like a stroll in the Sunday park, which has some validity. So then notice that all mystical systems, all mystical systems, no matter what they're described as being, all attempts to do something extraordinary, all attempts that are considered to be methods, journeys toward a transcendental experience, some sort of cosmic universal understanding, are based upon what? They're described in many ways, but also at the hearts of religion, as we were considering. The real practice, the attempt of religions, what little is left, is what? A quieting of the mind. Now, that's not the end of it, so don't sigh yet. But that would be, if somebody had followed what we were talking about until now, and they followed this kind of line of, forgive me, reasoning, that there's no information out there, no direction that is truly encouraging, that is truly on an individual level. To me personally, there's nothing out there that is disruptive to the civil order. I don't mean the legal order, I don't mean the cultural and moralistic order of wherever you are, it doesn't matter. The stability, the status quo of civilization. The second area, that which is not retro, that which is slowly, gradually, generationally expanding and becoming more and more civil and less uncivil, and less dumbing, less and less violent, less and less animalistic, etc. Then if the information that it would be truly disruptive if it were widespread and heard, if it is not out there and it's in me, let's say that somebody hears that and they go, ha, and that's kind of the first ha-ha. Then they hear, but it's not. What they hear, it's in you. And then say, well, it's got to be at a verbal level. If it's in there, it's of no use. Okay, I got that? So it's in the mind. Aha! But then they're left with, but Jesus, my mind is just, it's an expressway. It's a maelstrom just going on constantly on this and that and good thoughts, bad thoughts. I run up here, I run everything from mystical lectures just momentarily, a flash from that, to a slasher movie. I mean, I've got everything up here. Now you tell me the information's there and that sounds right, but how am I going to get it? And then you hear, the practice has got to be a calming of the mind. And then it's like, a third ha, aha, now we're getting somewhere. That if I get it calm, then in some way they would assume that we're saying then if you get it calm, in some way you could maybe look down like the stilled waters in a lake, and there's some treasure in there, but as long as it's all choppy and the wind blowing and you're involved with all the temporal passing aspects of life, all the regular forms of entertainment. But if you get it calm, then if there is a treasure, then you can look, just like with the actual water, then you can look down and see what it was. God, that's appealing, isn't it? And it sounds right. Well, it is right up to that point. But here is an additional tricky part. A real tricky part. The mind cannot be quieted by direct orders to do so. That is what, for any of you who like historical information, that particular sentence, no matter what language, that was probably its virgin appearance on this planet. No matter what it's called, all the forms and practices that we have been mentioning, trying to self-remember, trying to keep an objective awareness, I'm here, or trying to remember the breath of Brahma each time you breathe. All of that is an attempt, not to, no matter whether they described it that way at the time or even afterwards, it is an attempt to calm the mind. It could be carried a little bit further. There is not a widespread historical system that I could point to as an example, such as the Sufis and certain Hindu schools of the other practices, but there have been attempts here and there that went, in a sense, a little past that, and their practice was this, that you're, instead of trying to remember the name of God or the 10,000 faces of Buddha with each breath, you understand, which is an indirect attempt to calm the mind. They don't normally describe it that way. Tied to that, the description of calming the mind generally has to do, the way it's been practiced, with an actual meditation practice of trying to sit physically still, and then this will in some way still that. And especially sitting physically still, you can't get up and be chasing naked women around the room and chasing food and trying to see when there's a sale on new clothes. And so it's like a deprivation of ordinary stimuli, of ordinary entertainment, so that this will eventually calm. And all you can do is say, well, it's worth a try. I got another 60 years, so you try it. There has been, beyond those, there have been hit and miss attempts, not widespread, that went a little bit more directly to the matter, that said, all right, the practice should be this, is continue to tell your mind to stop. That rather than worrying about the kind of descriptions that no matter what life, how life is flowing through me and what kind of winds and waves are making my mind, the surface of my mind's pond, uneasy, distracted, rather than saying, I will be almost as though an unbending, impartial, like a weed, like a bulrush growing up in the lake, and I will remember that I'm there, like the impartial recollection of one's existence, self-remembering, the remembrance of the name of God. It's like, I will be there in the midst of this. I can't just stop it, but at least I'll be as though I'm sort of a little cane, a little growth out of the bottom of the lake, and this kind of piece of my awareness, the kind that right now is interested in this, I will just sort of stand there. And no matter what happens, I know I can't stop it, but I'll just study it. Because you've got thousands of years of saying the unstudied life, the unexamined life is not worth living. And whether they use those words or not with the same kind of mystical practice, they'll say that a man must know what he is, he must know what's going on inside of him, he must know what the distractions are. A man simply must know what he's faced with to come to grips with it. And you can't deny that. Unless you know something, but... So, but you understand, that is the basis, that is covering 99% of every mystical practice you ever heard, is that I in some way am going to take my best shot at just watching this, trying to keep in some way my distance from it, which is what all the practices of trying to continually remember that one exists impartially, objectively, apart from all of this that may be going on that wants to attract you, is to try and distance oneself from the carnal world, from the ordinary world, from the temporal world, from the distractions. Now, it's been called everything in the world, but it all gets down to what I'm telling you. It's an attempt to calm the mind. So rather than, I was going to give you beyond the 99%, there have been, rather than just the attempt to be impartial and study what's going on, there have been hit and miss attempts of somebody that would understand some of this along the way and go, well, screw all that. I'm just going to start taking my mind constantly, instead of me trying to constantly remember, well, I'm here, I'm remembering the face of Buddha, I'm remembering me, it's me, and trying to constantly do that, which is trying to calm the mind. There have been people who tried just themselves, it struck them, wait a minute, that's wasted effort. What I'm going to do is just continually tell myself, shut up, stop it. No matter what it is. No judgment, which the original, the other 99% attempt is supposed to be, I assume you understand, sans judgment, to be an objective observer of oneself, to remember the face of God, to remember the breath of Brahma as he breathes in and out of reality every second. All of that implies, whether you understand or not, a non-judgmental attitude. You can't get involved with it. You're trying to calm everything and stand aside from it, to distance yourself, to separate yourself from that. Not because it's good or evil, but because you understand that that is what keeps my mind away from whatever I'm looking for. It's what keeps me distracted. But so rather than just trying to stand here like I will picture me being this little stalwart little cane, this little pussy willow out here in the lake while it's blowing around, I'm just going to stand for, as long as I can live, and I'll try to watch, and I'll pick up all these pointers about where the wind comes in, and some winds that have to do with greed blow my lake worse than other lakes. I talk to other people and they say that sex blows their lake. So that's good information to have. To find out what little winds blow my, cause my little waves. That I'm getting somewhere. I just feel like I must be getting closer to, my elbows and everything's bleeding, so I must be getting closer to San Francisco. It's the illusion you're doing something. So there have been people who just, instead of that, just here and there, they came up with, I'm just going to turn around in my mind, the waves and say, stop it, stop it, stop it. And any of you who are following this, at first blush, if you've had enough experience with this, you might think, that is true. That would be an improvement. In fact, some people, you can tell them that under the right conditions. I don't know whether we've established over the last few nights the right conditions, which I've been trying to lay out subtly, furrow your little gardens, that some people will hear that and go, that's it. And it seems to be a major step that, forget all this about me trying to be impartial and trying to be a stout little soldier, and I'll stand here while all this lake goes on. I'll study it for years, and I'll meditate, and I'll try not to get all involved, and all the time I'll be watching. And I'll be taking notes and understanding to hear, hey, that's fine, but that's kind of for wimps. There's no way to do it. I'm just going to constantly say, stop, 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 stop. Whatever it's doing. Again, no judgment, but it seems to be a little more active, a little more direct. Of not that I'm just staying here observing it, that I already understand that whatever it is going on is a distraction. It's useless to my purpose. You've got to understand that to get even that far. You've got to just, that whoever's going out there, it's neither good nor bad, and there's no judgment of the world, because out there, you're not going to affect it anyway. That's life. That's transformation. That's healthy. That's dynamics. It's only the stagnation that's your opinion of it, your judgment, your criticism of it. So a man who understands anything understands what's going on out there it's just beyond me. It's got nothing to do with me. It's irrelevant. It just is. It's healthy. There's the glow. There's me. There's my life. That's the reason I am alive. That is healthy. It is constant change. The only stagnation, the only thing that is a distraction is my internal opinion of it. So a man who understands that, rather than just standing aside like, well, I'll take notes about what upsets me, you got to get to the point to understand anything that upsets me is a waste of time. Mm-hmm. Anything that I would be wasting another 60 years under the guise that I'm doing something important by taking notes, making observations about what does upset me. Being dumb upsets you. Being ordinary upsets you. There is no judgment to make. There are no notes to take about, well, which parts, what is it that makes my mind do this? That? well, let's see. If I get that down, then what will happen? Then that'll do it. How about that? So it might sound as though that would be a real breakthrough, or that you had learned something secret under the right conditions, something really meaningful to go, that's it. From henceforth, what I'll do. The part of me, because there is obviously a part of you, you cannot make it turn into logical, symbolic logic. You cannot put it down, make it make sense. That is, there's something aware of me that if you can be aware of, if you can be conscious in a greater sense, then the great historical descriptions have always been that your consciousness becomes so merged with the cosmic consciousness, the universal consciousness, that you cease to exist. Then you're left with this, well, how's it that I know that I'm doing it? Mm-hmm. It's the part of you that knows you're doing it. It's the part of you that wants to do it, can hear what I've just said, and could think, aha, there's the secret. Now I'm getting somewhere, because there are no notes to take. There are no judgments to make. What I want to do is stop this, and so rather than me worrying about, all right, what am I watching? All I'm going to do is I'm aware that my mind has got this running inner commentary. That is the distraction. That I am doing a running critique of life. Even if you're supporting life, even saying, good show life, that's a damn criticism. That's a distraction. That's the running commentary. A person can understand, there it is. That's what I am trying to do. That's what everybody I've ever read about is trying to do. No matter how far afield they got from it, no matter what strange terms, that's it. There's no doubt about it. So rather than me worrying about that I remember the face of God, or I remember the names of Buddha, that I'll remember me, what I'm going to do is I'll remember to tell this stuff that goes on all the time. I'm just going to say, no, 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 no. And I'll just constantly look off. I will not stare at it. I'll look off like a martial art expert. I will treat it as though a warrior. I'll treat it as though I am surrounded, not by enemies, but by distractions, fleas, ticks, minor stings, except these minor stings will kill me. It's not the bombs out there, remember, that Knight told his son. It's not those external bombs that kill you, it's those internal BBs. So, a person, if they heard that, could decide, that's it. I'll just tell myself, shut up. That part of my mind. That I'm not going to discuss it. I'm not going to even stop and look at what it's doing, because if it's talking, I know it's a waste of time. If it's talking, I want it to shut up. And it's constantly going, so there would seem to be a lot better than trying to remember the face of God, trying to self-remember, is to do that. Except for this trick that I pointed out. The mind cannot be quieted by direct commands to do so, including that. It is though you tried to describe, not Denver, not San Francisco, you tried to define to somebody, or describe to somebody that there is like a floating island, which would be, let's say, the experience, increased consciousness, somewhere above the planet, somewhere that's not in Denver, it's nowhere, it doesn't really exist much. And people go, that's it, that's it. What is it? And as soon as you name it, as soon as you identify it, you can't get there. The mind cannot be quieted by direct commands to do so. Then you're left with, if a man, there was once a man on this planet. He's been here several times, been here a bunch of times, sometimes as a woman, sometimes as a tree, just so you don't try to get hung up. And people are always popping up in this genetic journey down here, known as humanity, that understand all this, and they decide to try to tell somebody else, and they get to right the point that you should be listening tonight. The temptation is, once you understand it, is to redefine it, to rename it, and to bring it a little more up to date. Which I almost did, or if you heard it the right way, I almost did by saying, forget all the things about trying to self-remember, remember the name of God, or try to create some kind of still monastery in yourself, would be just to go, shut up, be quiet, hush. Just refuse to do it. The temptation would it be to do that, or to actually redefine it a little more and give it a new name. That is what the mind wants, would be for this guy. If there was a guy here now that knew all that, and he could say, describe the kind of stuff I just did, and say, I'm going to give the method, the people in the past were fine. They're trying to remember the names of God, to trying to remember the breath of Brahma, trying to remember oneself. That was all good, and it was good for their time and place, but this is now 1994, this is another generation. I am going to, if we have only serious and sincere people here, I'm going to give you now, it's very short, and it's not that, it's of course in the same line, it's the great historical progression, the development. I'm going to give you a new description of it. You don't know the temptation to do that. And a man who understands anything can do it, can come up with a new one. But if you do, then whatever you name, the people can't get there. Within all that was a very specific, practical message. I know the tape ran out, I planned it. Within all that, don't just look at me or wait for somebody to show up and give a new description. The mind wants to hear a new description. They insist on it. But if your mind heard one, if somebody told you, all right, here's what you should be doing, here's the practice, is try and it was just 3 or 4 words, try and, no. And it had to do with this, of course, and you go, just constantly think about this. This is the method of the 90s, or the 20th century, 21st century, is to always go, no. Many people, your mind wants to hear it. It goes, But if you name it, you can't get there. That is the other side of the coin of the mind cannot be quieted. Make sure that you see my lips. The mind cannot be quieted. No conditions, no asterisks. The mind cannot be quieted by direct commands to do so.